I'm going to sum up very quickly. Thanks for inviting me here. I'm not surprised, but I am disappointed that the entire debate is about Muslims and Islam, because as I said to Mehdi, I do think there are huge issues, as the UN has pointed out, about libel laws. The Culture Select Committee has just published a report today about the balance all being wrong in our libel laws. That rich people could come here and shut up novelists, journalists, editors. We don't hear anything about that. These are huge issues, anti-terror laws, locking up people on the basis of what they say. For example, in Luton recently, no matter how abusive. These are huge issues, and we don't talk about them. Instead, we talk about Muslims, Muslims, Muslims. And while I accept Timothy's point, that, and perhaps I'm happy to apologise or rephrase if you thought I was understating. Not at all. It's disgusting that Muslims threaten non-Muslims with violence, but at the same time, it's also disgusting that there is an entire cadre of journalists, columnists, who abuse Islam and Muslim every day freely without any death threats whatsoever, without any threats to their career, let alone death threats. And I just think we have to get everything in proportion. We have to get offence in proportion. This idea, you made the point of walking down the street, I think this is absurd, and to use your phrase, trite, to say that you're offended by what you read in The Guardian, and compare that to how Muslims felt about the cartoons and their attack on their prophet, who Muslims regard as more important. I love the prophet more than I love my own 2-year-old child. You'll never understand that. I don't expect you to, that's fine. But to compare the two is nonsense, and it is trite, because the only valid point you've made tonight is that you as a gay man get homophobic abuse. And you're right, and you shouldn't. And the idea that you get it from The Guardian or the New Statesman is absurd. So this idea that you're offended by that, that's the only point you can make a legitimate point of. You cannot tell me that I don't mind racism. Sorry.
You have deeper feelings.
Yes, I do. On racism, I do have deeper feelings in Douglas. You're white, I'm brown, I'm the minority, we're the ones who suffer racism. I'm fed up of people telling me, it's fine to be racist. I want to hear what a racist is. I don't. Yes, you did. You said, I want to hear if someone is a racist. You said, well, those are your words.
Know if they're racist.
Yes, well, I don't. I'd rather they keep their racist views to themselves. I'm glad we live in a Britain now where racist people do keep their views to themselves, apart from the racists and the BNP who use religion as a cover, and that's a real problem, even if the religious law is not the right thing to do. There are huge problems in our society. It makes no sense, and it's you who are being dishonest to say it's all about Islam and Muslims.
Produce any rational... Right.
Can we go up?
Yes.
First of all, I do think it's really important to see the difference between race and religion. It's an absurd and offensive statement to say blackness is wrong or untrue. It's not absurd, although some may find it offensive, to say the claims of Islam are untrue and wrong. And so there is an absolutely fundamental difference between what we're saying about incitement to racial hatred and what we're saying about incitement to religious hatred. And everything we've done since the Enlightenment has been about enabling us. Everything we do in this university is enabling us to question the truth claims of any faith and none. Secondly...
Sorry, are you pro-racial hatred law or what? Douglas is anti.
Right. So, how long do we have? I mean, Anthony Lester, who drafted with Roy Jenkins the wording of the incitement to racial hatred, has some problems with the particular legal wording, which is calculated to stir up, because it's a rather woolly wording. So I think there was a problem with the woolliness of the wording, which invites a sort of cultural victimhood. But I have no problem in principle with laws on racial abuse, not least because I think they have led to violence in the sort of situations you're describing. And so we need longer on this. I think Douglas and I may disagree on that. Okay. By the way, I think I would want to say a word for embattled minorities, namely white professors in Oxford. This idea that somehow everything one is saying here is just white professors in ivory towers and therefore is disqualified, is itself a form of prejudicial statement. It's turning it the other way around, actually. Our embattled minority.
With your Guardian column.
Exactly, I mean, because I am. I take that. But what I do want to say to that, and let me just go sideways for a moment. Mehdi is, of course, right that there are lots of big threats to free speech. And I think we would all, and Douglas will not disagree with that, and we haven't talked about some of them, but Penn and Index on Censorship have just launched a massive campaign precisely about libel law and libel tourism. So you can't say we free speechers don't care about these things. We do. It's the biggest campaign they have going at the moment. By the way, you asked about corporations. corporations, sure, they intimidate people. But there is a difference here, which is most of this happens using and exploiting the law and exploiting financial power. And it is, with respect, a different sort of argument. And it's a sort of argument we need to have, where we sit here and we say, what should the law be and what should the rules of civility be? And where, to the lady there, the Saeed lady, if I may call you that.
Hi, I'm the Saeed lady.
Look, I think the position of British Muslims, and I think Mehdi might agree with me, has really changed a lot in the last 20 years. I honestly don't think you can say that British Muslim voices are now significantly underrepresented, at least in the British liberal media.
No.
They're quite articulate and they represent quite different positions.
But
Some of them
also abuse against Islam and Muslims has exponentially increased in that sense.
Right, fair enough. But I mean, what we're getting to is a normal position where it's not self-appointed spokespeople of Muslims, as it might be the MCP, who arrogate themselves the right to speak for Muslims, like the BNP, saying we speak for the British. It's British Muslims, just as Muslim British citizens and Muslim journalists participating in this debate. So I actually think, and I'd be interested in what Douglas thinks on this, but he might even agree, I actually think that in this sense, in terms of the debate, of where the debate is going, we're moving in the right direction in this country.
I'm going to stand up. I'd just like to thank you very much for coming. I'm sure there's all sorts of other things we could have talked about, and all sorts of things that perhaps you felt weren't discussed. But I think that actually the panel have raised some problems. And I suppose I teach lots of international journalists and go around, and you know, we are very lucky. This is a very sort of precious thing, being able to have discussions about these things, and we are lucky. We are so lucky. That's what I mean, Phil. That, you know, I've never been tested. Nobody's ever actually, you know, my generation has never been tested about freedom of speech in the way that actually previous ones were. And I hope that you have found tonight at least interesting. I'm sure that you found something to disagree with, but I'd like to thank you. And I'd like to thank our panel.